Growing fallout this morning after reports that Democrats in Congress are planning to introduce legislation to increase the size of the Supreme Court. The bill would increase the number of justices from 9 to 13. The announcement comes less than a week after President Biden unveiled plans for a bipartisan commission to study possible changes at the High Court. Here now, Republican Congressman Buddy Carter of Georgia. He's going to offer his reaction to this story. Congressman, good to see you. But even before the commission releases their reports, Democrats want to pack the court here. Why do you think this is such a priority for Democrats right now?
Well, first of all, we've seen this train coming down the track for some time, and Republicans have been warning Americans that the Democrats were going to try to do this. That it shows you two things. First of all, that they will stop at nothing in order to promulgate their liberal agenda. And it also shows you that the Supreme Court, if they're successful at this, then it becomes a political football. And that's the worst thing that we could have in this country. Our forefathers, in their immense intelligence and foresight, knew that the Supreme Court needed to be independent of the other branches of government. And they knew that if the Congress started entering into this debate with the Supreme Court and using them as a political football, what it would result in. The Democrats are convinced that, they're only going to be in power for a short period of time. So they're going to do as much damage as they possibly can to our democracy before they are out of office.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder about, of course, the precedent it would set, depending on which party has the power, right? How many more justices could you continue to add? I want to ask you, though, realistically, do you see this being accomplished once it perhaps makes its way to the Senate?
Well, I certainly hope not. I've become a big fan of Joe Manchin, I will tell you that. And, this is dangerous territory that they are going into right now. This could impact, as you suggest. I mean, you could see it going back and forth depending on who's in power. And that's not what this is, what the Supreme Court, that's not what their function is. That's not what they were supposed to be doing. And certainly this is dangerous territory, a very slippery slope that we are entering into right now.
I want to talk to you about another issue you've been pretty passionate and outspoken about, that of our southern border here. Vice President Kamala Harris, she's been tasked with somewhat overseeing the crisis. Yesterday, she responded to criticism about why she won't be visiting the border here. Here's what she said.
As I mentioned to the experts, the president has asked Secretary Mayorkas to address what is going on at the border, and he has been working very hard at that and is showing some progress.
And yet she doesn't have a plan set to see the border firsthand. Again, she'll be traveling to several South American countries, but no set plan to see the border or those facilities at the border. What do you make of that?
Totally irresponsible. I have to say that I am truly disappointed in her actions here. She has been appointed and charged with this responsibility now for over 3 weeks, and yet she's still not been to the border, and she still does not intend to go to the border. Yes, she's going to Mexico, she's going to Guatemala, but she needs to be at the border. She needs to witness what I witnessed last Friday, and that is a disaster. There is a disaster at the border right now. It's disorder at the border as a result of the executive order. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And we've got to get it under control. And people think, oh, it's just people coming across. Well, yes, it is a humanitarian crisis. And if you could only look into the eyes of those children in a foreign country, they are scared to death. I mean, it's so sad. But it's also the other things that are happening now at that border, because the Border Patrol agents are having to concentrate on being social service agents, essentially, and providing social services. They can't do what they're trained to do, and that is monitor and police the border. And therefore, drugs are flowing across that border. And we had 2 incidences last week in the state of Georgia. We had fentanyl overdoses. We had a hearing yesterday in the Energy and Commerce Committee about the fentanyl problem and about how much of it's coming across our border. Enough fentanyl is coming across that border every year to kill every American several times over. This is an immediate crisis, immediate disaster, and it deserves and needs her attention if she's going to be truly the one in charge. If she's not, then just tell the president, no, I don't want that responsibility. Give it to somebody else. But don't shun the responsibility and just not do anything. When you don't do anything, you're doing something. And she's doing something, and it's irresponsible.
Finally, Congressman, I want to ask you about something else going on in your state. We're learning that 4 months after the 2020 election, state and county officials in Georgia have failed to produce chain of custody documents for an estimated 400,000 ballots. So first part of the question, why is that? And then also if you could explain what chain of custody is and why it might be so important.
Well, of course, as you know, during this last election, what we had a lot of drop boxes, and those drop boxes really weren't monitored at all. That's why I applaud the state legislature for what they've done with the Election Integrity Act. They've tightened it up, and they've given people confidence that their elections, that their votes are going to be safe, they're going to be secure, and that every legal vote's going to count, and that no illegal votes are going to count. That was extremely important. But that chain of custody with those absentee ballots and those ballots that were in the drop boxes, the counties were supposed to be responsible for that. But so far, only about 59 out of 159 counties have complied with that. And that's exactly what Georgians were saying when 75% of them said, we need election integrity. We need to have faith and confidence in our elections. That's what 60% of Democrats were saying, and 69% of African Americans were saying. Yes, we need more voter integrity. We need more election integrity. And that's what the Georgia State Legislature did when they passed the Election Integrity Act. They expanded voting, made voting easier, and made cheating harder.
So again, this just has to do with monitoring the drop boxes to make sure that people are dropping off their own ballot. Is that correct?
That is correct. And listen, that's where a lot of the questioning came in about the Georgia elections. As you know, in the prior election in November of 2020, you had to have a photo ID in order to vote in person, but in order to vote absentee, you had to match up a signature. And that's not right. Now we're going to have some kind of ID to go with that absentee voting. And that's what Georgia's demanded, and that's what Georgians are getting out of the Election Integrity Act. And I think it is so irresponsible and hypocritical of Democrats to be criticizing this law, of Joe Biden, of Stacey Abrams, of Raphael Warnock, to be criticizing this, saying that it's worse and it's suppressing votes. Nothing could be further from the truth. What it's doing is it's actually giving people confidence that their votes are going to be counted and they're going to be safe and secure.
All right. We'll leave it at that. Congressman Buddy Carter joining us here on National Report. Congressman, thank you so much.